Hi everybody, it's Sparrow again. So this is going to be my first official, collection of live reports because I've actually gone to a lot of stuff over the past, I think it's 2 weeks since I posted my intro video. And so, yeah, things have been crazy with school. Haven't had time or the energy to do this, so now we're just gonna see how much I can talk about each thing that I've gone to, and I'll try to be pretty thorough and also show you what are some of the goods that were available, etc., etc. And I'll be pretty transparent because I think there was one live that I wasn't able to go to because I got sick, which is unfortunate. But I do kind of want to bring up this was something that was scheduled and then, for reasons it didn't happen. So I feel like, it was something I was planning to go to, something I was very excited for. And so I don't want to just ignore it, if that makes sense. So, like I said, a lot to cover. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So the first thing, I don't have a ticket or anything to show because it's, for some reason, Mazari just always does electronic tickets. And electronic tickets are fine, but I'm a little bit of a pack rat. I like having the paper ticket as a souvenir. I have, you'll see these, I have books that just hold my tickets after the event. So it's a little bit disappointing for me that, I've gone to some really cool Mazari shows, and apart from the checky, I don't have my ticket proper. But the Mazari event was not a live per se, it was a talk event. But as I mentioned previously, I was really excited for it because I do kimono. I actually study at a kimono school, and I have been a fan of the designer brand Iroca for probably close to 10 years. And we're kind of on a first name basis, me and the designer. So when I found out about this event, I absolutely knew I had to go to it. And I knew if I wanted to go, I wanted to wear the first Iroca yukata that I ever purchased back in 2017. And I was gonna have to go straight from school. And so I got all dressed up for school, wore it all day. It was so sore the next day because I wore boots, but neither here nor there. I don't usually wear heels, so it was really out of the norm for me. But, I felt like I did a pretty good job of dressing for the fact that I was going to be wearing yukata and boots the full day. And, of course, there was also the special collaboration design, which the yukata itself had these flowers. I think they were maybe chrysanthemums, if I'm not mistaken, in the different members' colors. And they also had these giant centipedes on them. And Iroca's, and there was also the obi, and the obi you could get had this swirling member colors, each member's color was on it. And on the front side, it had this UV reactive, hot pink Mazari logo with a heartbeat line. And then in sort of the background, part of the kanji from each member's stage name was in the background. And so I knew for a fact, like, I absolutely had to have the obi because I adore it. But I was a little bit unsure on the yukata, especially because I feel like the expectation is that you'll buy the one in the color for your favorite member. But my favorite member, Manase, is the red tanto. And for some reason, instead of doing red, they did like hot pink, which is fine. I like hot pink, but I really liked the green colorway better. So in the end, I decided, because they're so expensive and I did want to support this collaboration, I did buy the green colorway with the obi instead of going with the red/pink. And if anybody is watching who is interested in yukata and Mazari, I do highly recommend looking into this collaboration. And unfortunately, it seems like the overlap between people who are willing to spend the money on a designer yukata and idol fans is not so high. So at least on day one, purchasing at the talk, it seems like not very many were being sold, which is a shame. So I really hope that it'll get made up over the coming weeks and months, because, you know, the Iroca designer, he's so wonderful, and his designs are so bright and so vivid and fun that I just think it's such a shame that they did this really cool collaboration that I don't think other like Vkei bands or like Vkei inspired idols, like I don't think anyone else has done something like this. And it's just such a shame to me that it's not, that there's a possibility that it won't pay off, because I want groups and bands to be more creative about how they promote themselves. And so that is just something that I hope will end up being worth it for both parties in the long run. But anyway, so enough about that. So I did purchase a signed poster, which I'm not going to show you because it's on the wall on the other side of my laundry. So sorry about the lighting. My laundry is hanging up right now, so unfortunately there's not much I can do about that. But even though I don't have a physical ticket, I was able to put in my, God, I guess, what is it, a 7-shot checky with me and all of the Mazari, and Manase is here. So I'd already done the 2-shot earlier, and before the band set tour final, oh God, when was it? It was March or April, I think. The Mads Inc. CEO had done a talk event with Manase and a member of a different idol group that's under their label. They did a promotional talk event in the afternoon to help promote this book about like important 90s Vkei albums. And I guess Manase is, out of all the members of the group, of course this is an idol group, so they probably got scouted or there was an audition, but they weren't necessarily interested in Vkei before they joined the group. And it's especially true, Manase said that she didn't really know about it at all before she joined the group, but out of everybody in in Mazari, she has become far and away the biggest fan, and her favorite group is Zaza. And I discovered Zaza through my friend from Latvia, and we went to a couple of lives together, but it's been a couple of years because I really scaled back the number of bands that I would go to see during COVID, and unfortunately they were one of the bands that I just stopped going to during the COVID years. But I do have like old merch and stuff from when I was going to them. And so one that I have here currently is one of like the very first sensu with like all these like colorful butterflies and stuff on it. And so once I found out that Manase is a Zaza fan, I knew I wanted her to pose with this fan. And initially, so you don't really give it to them directly to pose with, and it is normal for people to give them items to pose with. So like there was no confusion that like this wasn't a gift or something, that was something that I wanted her to take a photo with. But I guess it's so normal that she didn't even look at it. So the staff handed it to her to take the photo with, and she just opens it up and has the back side facing out. And I had to be like, wait, no, it's the opposite. And so she flips it out, they take another photo, and that's the one they give to me. And then I sit down while she's signing it, and I show it to her. It's like, oh, I wanted you to take a photo with it because it's Zaza. And she just immediately was like, oh my God, I want this. And it was so cute. And then when we did the 7-shot, she's just like, the fan. And it took me a second to process what she was saying. It's like, oh, so I pull it out and I open it up and we take the photo together. And then she like takes it from me and she like turns it around to show to the other girls and was like, look, it's Zaza. And then on a dime, everyone just, you're a banya? That's amazing. Oh my God. And you look so cute. And they were just, everyone just lost their minds. And it was such a fantastic way to end the evening. So I know they're not strictly visual kei, but they are very heavily Vkei inspired. And so I did want to talk about it a bit. And also because, you know, I want people to also be looking at the Iroca collaboration as well. But we'll go ahead and we'll push that aside and we'll move on to, on May 31st, I went to 2 lives. So in the afternoon, I went to Nicolas, and then in the evening, I went to Akai Yuurei's one-man live. And Nicolas was one that I had heard kind of randomly on YouTube, and I really liked the music videos that I heard. And so I was just like, okay, let's get a one-man ticket and see what we think. So far, every time I've done that, it's actually been a big success and I've loved it. But I wasn't paying attention when the Akai Yuurei Happy End Live was announced. So I actually double booked myself, and I knew there was no way I was going to be able to watch all of both of them because the venues were nowhere near each other. And so I was like, well, I bought a 10,000 yen S ticket for the Akai Yuurei show, so I definitely am not coming to that late. So, you know, I'll probably just leave at Encore for Nicolas and, you know, just to be safe. And unfortunately, I didn't love the Nicolas live. I didn't think they were bad, and the songs weren't bad, but I just didn't feel like, I don't know if it was the vibe. didn't really work for me, but it just was not as much fun as most of the bands that I will go to see often. So unfortunately, I was not too upset when it came time that I needed to leave. So I do think I would continue to listen to their studio tracks because, again, I do think that they make very good songs, but I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to see them again. I'll probably, you know, do foodie and everything for them if I see them at a taiban, but yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way. On the other hand, Akai Yuurei was fantastic. Absolutely great live. So on the way in, I actually forgot to bring it over to my little beanbag nook, but on the way in, they gave us a rubber band bracelet that was glow in the dark, which was really fun. So, you know, everybody, when we were doing foodie, like everybody glowed sometimes. And that came with the S ticket. And the S ticket also came with a 5-shot checky and a memorial book. And I do have the memorial book right here. And we have Shugorei, my beloved. And I love that on the back it is the poster that they've had hanging up everywhere. Because, I mean, already it's such a vibe. But also, if you haven't seen it, let me take it out of the plastic, because the first time I saw them live, I went out of my way to take a photo of this poster because they had it framed up by the merch booth. Because up here at the top, I hope you can see, it just says, "You died." And I don't know why. Like, it, full punctuation, everything. It has the full stop, "You died." And I just find that so weirdly funny. Especially on this image. So the book also is quite large. It's much larger than I expected. I thought it was going to be like a book about this big, but no, it is very, very large, and it has like individual photo sections for each member. These are my two favorites right here. With interviews. And yeah, so definitely glad I got the S ticket and everything. But let's see, what was I gonna grab? Okay, I think it was over here. So these are the two checky that I got that day. Oh, this is my manase with the fan, but here's it's Shoma and Shugorei. And my God, Shugorei is just so ridiculously photogenic. Every single checky I've ever gotten of him is just amazing. And when I did the 5-shot, I didn't see it over here, so it must have actually not been a checky. I think it must have been on my phone, but I'm a little bit on the tall side for Japan, so when I go to stand over by the band, they're like, "Get down, get down." And so I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm just a little too tall. So I start to crouch down, and then I feel like something rough against my neck and the sides of my face, and I realized that they were like lacy fingers. And Shugorei is just like putting his hands around the side of my head, and I was, once I processed and I realized what was happening, I was so stoked, because I was like, oh, this is fun. I love that. I love that I'm getting, like, I don't know, it seemed in character. It seemed very on brand. And I was like, oh, I get to have a fun photo like this. And so I like made a silly, scared face, and yeah, that was wonderful. And of course, the standard, you know, they had the live, and then everyone called for encore. And before they came out, there was a screen, and they displayed images of each member's new visual. And on each image, if you follow the band, you've probably seen these. They're the same ones that went up on Twitter. But on each image, instead of saying Akai Yuurei, it had Oideo Yuureizu, which I think is like, come over here, ghosts, I think is what it meant. But it suddenly made sense why they've been calling themselves a limited band forever, and that this was going to be the last one. You know, it was destruction and resurrection, happy end. You know, it was like, this was very clearly meant to be a big deal. It was meant to be an ending, but also there was a continuing, like, there's other lives scheduled after this one, and no one really knew what was going on with that. And so then it's like, oh, this is the last Akai Yuurei live. After this, they are Oideo Yuureis, which is a bit of a mouthful, so I've just been shortening it to Yuureis. But yeah, they came out and they had their blue costumes, and Shugorei had like shortened his hair, and me and my friends were all like, oh, how did I never notice that he's been wearing a wig for weeks? But yeah, no, we didn't notice. And then after we looked, it was like, okay, that is actually pretty obvious. Like, even if you look at my checky from past lives, it's pretty obvious that he's been wearing a wig for a couple of weeks. But yeah, absolutely 10 out of 10, amazing live. I did see that they are doing a taiban in a few months with Dolly, and I'm a big Dolly fan, so you already know I'm going. Absolutely. The next one, what was the next one? Let's see. Okay, so the next live I went to was a taiban for CHAOSS, and well, unfortunately, there's not really any of the other, oh no, hold on, there is story. Because there was one band that, it was the second time I had seen them, and I still don't remember which band it was, but the singer is really, really tone deaf. So every time they come out, even though we never know until they come out. As soon as the singer starts singing, we're like, you want to hang out by the bar? Yeah, I think I want to hang out by the bar. Like, so tone deaf. But I honestly could not tell you who in this lineup it was. The only other band that like really made an impression was this group, Anibi, and they're two guys. I did find out they're a Fukuoka band. I say band rather loosely. It's two guys, and they're both vocalists. And they were, they did quite a lot of stuff that made me a little bit like, ooh, that's creepy. Like the girl that was in Dosen, so like the center of Saizen, like pressed her face into his crotch, and like I hate it when bandmen do that. But I did find out again from somebody online who is Fukuoka Bangya that this is their thing. They're very, very well known for it in that area, and they're very good about only doing that type of fan service for the fans that they know want it. The fans that they know are not comfortable with it, they don't do anything funny. So while it was definitely not for me, I will say the problems that I had, I don't actually think are a big deal anymore. And then CHAOSS. I mean, I've seen CHAOSS now close to 20 times, and they're just always really, really good. This, actually, I do remember this live in particular, they were maybe a bit angry or stressed out about something, because beforehand, when they were getting set up and the curtain was drawn, like one of the guys was like pawing at the curtain right in front of me and the Kamini girl. And so the two of us were feeling quite playful, and so we like batted the curtain back, and then he starts like screaming because we batted back, and it was all playful. But when they were actually performing, everybody was, you know, if they normally are playing at like a 9, they were playing at 11. Everything was louder and everything was a lot more intense. And so it was a really, really good performance, but I do suspect that I don't know, they might be feeling some big emotions on that particular day. The next live that I went to was Matenrou opera. And just to start out, so I did get the muffler towel, and actually I love this design. I love the colors, I love the flowers, and a lot of Matenrou opera towels that I've seen tend to just be the logo, so I was very excited when they had something different. And I was very, very, very tempted by the bath towel as well. But I don't know. I know that I would be very hesitant to use the bath towel. And it's like 5,000 yen. And so in the end, I decided not to get it now and figured if I change my mind later, I can always order one. But at least the muffler towel, it's going to go on my wall with the rest of my merchandise towels. So at least, you know, it has decorative value as well as I can take it to lives. But the t-shirt, even though it's the same design, I don't think the printing on the t-shirt was very good, because you can see even in the bad lighting, like the oranges and the reds are quite vibrant in the towel, and they were not in the t-shirt. I would say the design kind of all blended together, so it was just like a mess of colors. And so I wasn't really tempted by the t-shirt at all. So, and then I also didn't really have a great experience. So this was not my first time seeing them live. And I've also seen Hibiki performing with Mazari as well. So I have a little bit of experience, but mostly I just would listen to the CDs. This was more of I went in 2017 and then just decided I wanted to see them again from the first time in ages. And I got stuck behind this guy in the audience who was behaving quite strangely. And I did notice that this live was more balanced in the gender breakdown. So there was a lot of guys there. And so there was this guy in a ball cap that he started out actually behind me. And then when the person in front of me moved forward to fill in a gap, he kind of went around me and got in front of me. And because I was kind of far back, and I really wanted to see Hibiki, and I had kind of perfectly placed myself to be able to watch him. And so when he moved in front of me, that like perfect framing was kind of ruined, because suddenly I only had about this much window, which again would be totally fine, except he would sway back and forth constantly. And so I wasn't able to see a lot of times. And because the guy that I had positioned myself to angle was probably my height or a little bit taller, I couldn't see anything to the left of Hibiki. I couldn't see the singer, like nobody on that side was visible to me. So when this guy would move and block my view of Hibiki, like I literally just couldn't see anything. But while I was irritated, I wasn't going to make a big deal about it. But then he would also sway at a diagonal towards me. And when he would do that, his butt would like brush against my arm. And that made me very, very uncomfortable. And so I kind of just kept my arms like this in the hopes that if he hits my elbow a couple times, maybe it'll remind him that there were people around, and remind him to respect other people's space, which seemed to work, except then he kind of shifted back to going side by side, but he had two massive bags that he didn't use cloak or the coin lockers. And so when he started shifting back and forth instead of at an angle, he would hit me with his bag. And I really wanted to move, but because it was a pretty packed house, I didn't know if there was anywhere for me to go. And at this point, I'm like, I don't know, is this guy a pervert? Like, is he mad that I moved my arm and now he's intentionally hitting me with his bag? So I was gonna deal with that. And then I noticed that every now and then he would stop and he would do, this sort of thing, or he'd like rub his fingernails. And I realized, okay, there's a very, very high chance this guy's actually autistic. So I don't think, like, all of my complaints, the being unaware of how, like, the swaying, all that stuff is very obviously stimming, because, like, I do this with my fingernails. Like, that's something that I know is one of my stims. So it's like, okay, that's definitely stimming. Both of those things are. Not quite being aware of the impact on other people's space. Definitely tracks. And I was like, okay, it's a really big inconvenience, and it did make me very uncomfortable throughout most of the live. Like, I wasn't able to really enjoy the live at all. I have almost no memory of the live apart from this guy. But at the same time, I'm not going to go to security and be like, hey, you should get this autistic guy out of here. Like, that's not cool. So I did decide that I just couldn't take it anymore, and I went to go to the back of the room. And there actually was space on the stairs. And so I actually had a much better view, but by the time I moved, there was only like 2 songs left of the encore. So kind of kicking myself now that I hadn't taken myself out of that situation a lot earlier. So unfortunately, this was not a great experience. I can't hold it against him, and obviously it's not the band's fault. I'm just gonna have to make a plan to go see them again. So, and I mean, from what I remember hearing, even though I couldn't really see much of anything and I was very distracted, they sounded great. I mean, it's Matenrou, they always sound great. But yeah, unfortunately, this particular go was a bust, and I'm gonna have to see him again. The next one I went to was another taiban, and actually this one I left early because I didn't know if I was going to be able to go to it. It is a CHAOSS taiban, and they were going to be playing the first band at 5:30, and my school has been preparing for a festival, and we were supposed to have rehearsals after school. And so if we did have rehearsals, that was going to be completely just a no-go. There was no way I'd be able to get out there to Ikebukuro before their set started. And so I was like, if I can go, I'll go. I had a ticket, but I didn't really expect to be able to go. But it turns out my particular group did not have rehearsals on that day, so I was able to leave straight from school and got there with like a half an hour to spare. So it was fine. But I was just so exhausted from school that I got my spot on the front row for CHAOSS and had a great time. And there were 2 songs, I'm sure I've heard them before, but there were 2 songs that are not yet released on recordings, so I'm not super familiar with them yet. One of them was called Ask, and the other one was called Scar. And so because I'm not super familiar with those songs yet, I'm also not super comfortable with the footy. But it is always fun to hear like the new songs for those bands that you really, really like. So very, very much enjoyed their set. But yeah, by the time they were done, even though they were the first band, I was just so exhausted. I was probably exhausted when I got there. And then the second band to play was Tsukishigure. And I do really, really like them. But my favorite member is the support drummer. But they have 2 support drummers. And I could already tell because the girl I know who follows Loa was not there. So I could already kind of tell. It's like, okay, it must be the other support drummer tonight. And yeah, without Loa, I wasn't super into it. But I did stay for their entire set. And then afterwards, I was just like, you know what? I think I want to go home and like curl up and just relax for the rest of the night. So I left after just those 2. And there were some bands I really did want to see, like Karisome, I think is one that I was very curious about. But yeah, I was just so tired. And then then 2 days later was my birthday. And because of my birthday, I was gonna go do something with a friend, and my dorm does not allow for visitors, and neither does her dorm. And so we decided that we were gonna go to a karaoke place, to Big Echo, and get a room with a Blu-ray DVD player so that we could watch live DVDs. And yeah, so the big inspiration for that was last week, my Dolly Blu-ray came in the mail, and I'm sure you'll notice very similar theming here. So this was the tour final from last year, and it was in the Uguisudani area, which I actually used to live around there a long time ago. But this live house, the stage was gorgeous. And so as soon as I saw, like, they had sheer curtains and they had twinkling lights, and as soon as I saw the stage, even before they started playing anything, I was like, there's no way they're not releasing this. So as soon as it was announced for the fan club, I pre-ordered one. And because I pre-ordered, I was able to get the fan club photo book. And again, this is very, very large, but you can kind of see the stage setup with the sheer curtains and the lasers that they did for some of the songs. Like, it was such an incredible live. And I was so excited during the live because I went to every single show that they did last year. They did 4 in this 20th anniversary memorial tour. And my favorite song, so I got into Dolly fairly early on, but as like a Kai Guy fan. So, you know, I never had the opportunity to see them live. They actually did perform in Texas once, which is where I'm from, obviously. But I was not in Texas that year. I was actually in Hawaii. And so this band that I loved played in Austin, and I missed it, which is unfortunate. They played by South by Southwest. And so they were always the band that if you were to ask me which band I was most sad that I never got to see live, Dolly was my answer. Like, not any of the bigger bands. Dolly was the one that got away. And so as soon as they announced everything, I basically moved heaven and earth to make sure that I went to every single live last year. And so it was quite noticeable to me that my favorite song of theirs, Koushoku no Kanaria, which is their last single, was very conspicuously absent from all of their set lists up until that point. And they did perform it at the last one. And so that is extra exciting for me because that means that I have it forever now. When I was watching this with my friend who was not at all familiar with Dolly, there was apparently a song, like the very last song that they performed, that she had heard before, but she didn't know it. She didn't know about them. She didn't know it was them. But apart from that, she really didn't know anything about them. And she loved it. As soon as I told her that they're doing a taiban with Yuurei's, just like I knew she would, she was like, yes, we're going to that. So I converted a friend. So we watched this, and we actually upgraded the room because the staff said that they, for an extra like 50 yen per person per half hour, we could get a room that had projectors. that projected onto the walls. So we upgraded to that room, and so glad we did. It was such a great experience. And then we ended up having extra time, so I showed her this, which any Meri fans in the audience might recognize this. So I got into Meri in 2005 when I was studying in Shizuoka, and that was the year that they did their first major label album, and thus their first major tour. So this was released on DVD maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I went back to the US. And I didn't know it was coming out because, you know, social media was not what it is now. So I was just walking around a CD store, and I just saw Meri on the spine and didn't even hesitate. Like, I was a broke kid, and it was 5,000 yen, and I did not care. Give it to me. And it is still, I have almost all of the Meri DVDs pretty much ever released up until 2020. And I'm sure a lot of it is nostalgia points, but this is still, I think, one of, if not the best live DVDs they've ever released. And so I'm really glad that she also was not very familiar with Meri either. And so I was really glad that for my birthday, I was able to, expose her to some of my favorite bands. And I guess I will finish with the sad news that, unfortunately, because I got sick the day after my birthday, I was not able to go to the Gatocho one-man, which I was super excited about because, I was really, really into them before the lineup change. And I have not really, I'm not really sure yet how I feel about the new vocalist. And like the bassist, I'm not as concerned about the change in the bassist, but because Soma was my favorite member previously, and because changing the vocalist of a band is like changes the tone so drastically, that I watched the music video. I was not super impressed, but I also am not going to judge too harshly on that. I really want to see them live, and I want to see how do they work together as a unit with this new lineup before I make a judgment one way or the other about the new group. And so I really, really was excited to get to see them the day after my birthday, and I instead took a 3-hour nap. I will have to go see them as soon as I am able. I think they're doing a show next month at Ikebukuro EDGE, so I'll probably try to go to that one. But in the meantime, if anybody was able to make it to that show, or any of the shows that I have talked about, or any of the bands that I've brought up, any comments, feedback, opinions, I would love to hear about them. So I guess I shouldn't be too surprised that this has gone on for so long, because it was a lot of lives to cover. So hopefully I won't be covering this many lives in one video too regularly because it's a bit much. But if you stuck around with me and my ramblings for this long, thank you. It is appreciated. The next live I have coming up is another CHAOSS taiban. And super, super excited about this one because it is Ikura's birthday live. And so CHAOSS is actually doing 2 sets. And my special Ikura birthday towel came last week. It says Umarete kite gomen nasai, which is also the name of the live. And for those who do not speak the Japanese, it says, I apologize for being born. And I just... How is that? How has no one done that theme before? Vkei is so emo already, and really, it's so obvious in retrospect, and I love it. It's so over the top, and yeah, I can't wait. I'm super excited. So, all right, I will go ahead and stop this now before we make it all the way to an hour. And yeah, so I hope you had fun listening to some of my live stories, and hopefully the next one will not be this long. So see you later, guys.